Sujatha Balasubramanian ji. She's a teacher by profession and a storyteller by passion. As an independent researcher of Ramayana and Mahabharata, she loves to explore the lesser known nuggets in the Itihasas. She also likes to engage with young minds and impart to them both Sanskrit and Sanskriti. She holds an MA in Sanskrit from Shastra University. Can present now, Sujatha ji. 20 minutes, please.
Thank you. Namo Dharmaya Mahate. Salutations to Dharma the Great. Sabhaye Namaha. My namaskar to all the distinguished panelists, members of Indic Academy, and members of the audience. The topic of the paper that I am going to present today is Articles 36 to 51 of the Indian Constitution, tracing the Indic roots. So, what do these articles represent? What do these articles represent? What are these? Collectively, they represent the directive principles of state policy, and they are enshrined in Part 4 of the Constitution. So what are the directive policies? What are the directive principles of state policy? The directive principles of state policy represent the objectives and the ideals which the union and the state government must bear in mind while formulating policies and making laws. They serve as a set of guidelines for the government while enacting laws. They are like a set of do's and don'ts for the government. So a quick background into the directive principles of state policy. Popularly believed to have been inspired by the constitution of the Irish Free State. Dr. Ambedkar has, according to Dr. Ambedkar, they have been modeled after the Instruments of Instructions of the Government of India Act 1935. In fact, he referred to them as a novel feature, something unique and something different that he wanted to incorporate in the constitution. But keeping aside the Irish Constitution, keeping aside the Government of India Act, and keeping aside the fact that Dr. Ambedkar referred to them as novel feature, can the ideals that are represented by the directive principles, can these ideals have Indic roots? Can these ideals be traced further back to ancient Indian texts? So what I'm going to do in this paper is pick a few directive principles and see if they have any parallels in our ancient texts. And the texts I have specially chosen today are the Artha Shastra, the Niti Shastra, and the Mahabharatam. Let us begin with Article 38, which says, the state shall promote the welfare of the people by securing a social order through justice, social, economic, and political. The creation of a welfare state is the cornerstone of the directive principles of state policy. Now, ancient India recognized the divine right of the king to rule, yet it was repeatedly stressed that looking after the welfare of the subjects was the paramount duty of the king. If we look at Artha Shastram, it's a very famous shloka from Artha Shastram. Praja sukhe sukham rajnyaha prajanam cha hite hitam. Na atmanam priyam priyam rajnyaha prajanam tu priyam priyam. In the happiness of the king lies the happiness. In the happiness of the subjects lies the happiness of the king. The welfare of the subjects is the welfare of the king. Only what pleases the subjects should be desired by the king. The Niti Shastra also has a similar provision. Nripasya paramo dharma prajanam paripalanam. The welfare of his subjects is the king's prime dharma. This is in the Shukra Niti. In his Upadesha to Yudhishthira, Bhishma gives this advice. Yadahna kurute dharmam prajanam dharmena palayan dashavarsha sahasrani tasya bhunkute phalam divi. The king who looks after his subjects enjoys 10,000 years in the Swarga. So from these examples, we can see that the concept of welfare state was always an integral part of the Indic thought on governance. Next, we turn our attention to Article 39F. In any society, the children are the most vulnerable section. They need legal protection to ensure that they are not exploited socially or economically. In fact, this article was amended by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. The scope of this article was expanded. If we look at the Arthashastram, we have a similar provision. Balavidha Vyadhita Vyasini Anathamsha Raja Bibrayat. The king shall provide the orphans, the destitute children, and the helpless with maintenance. Baladravyam Gramavidha Vardayehu Avyavahara Prapanat. The property of orphans shall be looked after by the village elders till they attain majority. So, some amount of protection for the children, some amount of legal provision for the children was always envisaged long ago. The Arthashastram also says children, especially those with no relatives, should not be made to work in menial jobs in foreign country. In fact, not just children. The Arthashastram goes on to provide protection for pregnant women and the children born of such pregnant women. Striyam prajatam prajatascha raja bibrayat. So women who are pregnant and who have no other support, and the children born to such pregnant women also should be supported by the king. We next turn our attention to Article 43. This deals with worker rights. So the Article 43 states, this article aims to ensure that the workers are not exploited economically, they are not forced to work in unsuitable conditions, and they enjoy a decent standard of life. Our ancient thinkers were also very sensitive to worker rights. We find an almost exact echo in the Arthashastra. Turga Janapada Shaktiya Bhritya Karmam Samudaya Padena Sthapayet Karya Sadhanam Sahenava Bhritya Labhena Sharigam Apeksheta Na Dharmato Pidayet. So the wages of the worker shall be fixed according to the place of residence, whether he is in the city or whether he is in the countryside. Depending on that, the wages should be fixed. And the wages shall be fixed such that he does not lose out physically, mentally, or even spiritually. The Shukraniti goes to a step further and provides for a performance-based incentive. Yatha yatha gunavan bhutakas tada bhrittis tatha. So as the skill and the productivity of the worker increases, so should the wages be earned by him. His wages also should increase. In fact, the Manusmriti provides for a sick leave also. If a normally industrious worker falls sick, he should be given wages for a long period. So, dirghasyapi kalasya talabhet eva vetanam. So, if he's normally industrious, otherwise he does bhashitam adita. If he's been doing what he has been told and he falls sick, talabhate eva vetanam dirgha kalasya. For a long time, he should be given leave with wages. So, let us now move on to the next article. And this article often finds itself in controversy every now and then. Article 48 provides that the state should take steps for prohibiting the slaughter of cows and calves and other milch and draught cattle. Now, the demand for prohibition on cow slaughter has religious and civilizational connotations. The scriptures are replete with proclamations about the sanctity of cow and explicitly prohibited killing. Na himsayat brahmanan gasha sarvan shaiva tapasvinaha. Manusmriti says brahmanas, yogis, cows should not be harmed. Arthashastra goes on to prescribe death penalty for whoever kills a cow or even causes it to be killed. He who kills a cow or causes it to be killed. Swayam hanta ghatayitva. Either he kills himself or even if he is a reason for the killing, even then he deserves to be put to death. So, what was the aim of this study? What is the point of this mapping? So, laws cannot function in a cultural vacuum. They must relate to the cultural fabric of the society where they function. Like the directive principles, parallels can be traced for many other socio-economic and legal provisions in the Shastras. Understanding the Indic roots of socio-economic and legal provisions will provide the cultural and historical context to interpret and apply them. In fact, we have lawyers and judges. Very often we have had lawyers and judges quoting from the Shastras, just to provide a context to their judgment or context to their line of reasoning. So as recently as a couple of years ago, in the Navjot Singh Sidhu case, the Honorable Justice Sanjay Kishan Kaul quoted from Dharma Shastras. Why did he quote that? Not while the case was not while discussing the merits of the case or while discussing the quantum of justice, while discussing the quantum of sentence, I beg your pardon, while discussing the quantum of sentence. So to that extent, while determining the quantum of sentence, to that extent, the Shastras have provided us with guidance. So in fact, he quoted, Yatha vayam yatha kalam yatha pranascha brahmane prayashitam kadatavyam. So the sentence that given to a guilty person should be appropriate to his age, to the time, to his background. And we find this, the judges have quoted this, the Honorable Supreme Court judges have quoted this while awarding sentence. So this paper was just a pointer on the existence to our roots. It's the need of hour for the legal fraternity to appreciate, understand the Indic concepts, Indic roots of the legal concepts. And as I understand from the previous speakers, this project has already been undertaken and it should be continued. A more comprehensive exercise must be taken up. So with this, I come to the end of my paper and I thank Indic Academy for having given me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Sujatha ji. Thank you for also keeping time. Are there any questions for Sujatha ji? Okay. If there are any questions in the chat box, you could perhaps respond to that, Sujatha ji, as if there are any. You could respond in the chat box itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
in case
there are no questions as such. It's just that I was very conscious of the time, so I decided to shrink it very much.
I appreciate the fact that you have stuck to time. Thank you very much.